We don't really know where the world is gonna go, but now everybody knows that you can't stop for too long. Got to keep. But now everybody knows. Got to keep.
You don't have to be retired to receive tax-free income. The problem is the vehicles that we've been conditioned to believe to help get us there were never designed to produce income.
Got to keep going.
What you want to be going, you will see.
All ideas.
It's your destiny, be in harmony. We were never meant to be apart. What you want to be going, you will see. You can have everything you want. It's your destiny, be in harmony.
If you had a machine in your garage and all you had to do was put a quarter in it and then print it out $100, put a quarter in it, print it out $100, would you ever stop that machine from running?
But now everybody knows.
So what if you use that job that you hate as leverage to fill your machine so they can create income for you, so you don't have to worry about income?
You know where the world is gonna go, but now everybody knows that you can't stop for too long. Got to keep going. We don't really know where the world is gonna go, but now everybody knows that you can't stop for too long. Got to keep.
The first step.
Well, maybe. Good evening. I think maybe YouTube liked our intro so much they were like, just run that back. Just one more time. Welcome to everyone who has joined us in the chat already. Hello. Thank you so much for jumping in. We love to know who's watching and where you're watching from. This helps us also determine like when we maybe want to add another stream, maybe a different time. How is this working for you? We've made some changes recently. So it's always good to have that feedback, right?
Absolutely. And yeah, so it's interesting. I was talking with a gentleman, I want to say it was Friday, and he watches us in Vietnam.
Wow.
Like, I didn't even know that was a thing.
Yeah, it's a thing now.
So yeah, absolutely. So I would
I love
love to
that.
know where you guys are from, because I think there's a lot of people watching who turn us on, and we are part of their daily routine or weekly routine as it relates to the shows that they watch, and they're listening to us in the background or whatever the case may be. I would love to know where you guys are from. Just how far we're reaching, because I get a lot of my Canada people are watching as well. So
Yeah, are we good laundry folding material?
there we go. There we go. Or cooking in the background.
Yeah, cooking. Okay.
All kind of fun stuff.
Oh, I like that.
Mhm.
Um,
You know, I'm a foodie, not me, but you.
I'm the foodie. Yeah. Yeah. I could definitely use some snacks, math and snacks, because I'm an emotional eater. Definitely go together. Okay. Tonight we're talking about something that's a little controversial. Turning down an opportunity for leverage. Why did this matter? Would you walk away from $150,000? Would you? I don't know that most people would, but why you might want to might be why you might want to is the reason why you want to watch this stream. So, anything you want to add?
So this is about, we talk heavily about leverage on this channel, right? And we talk about taking advantage of as much leverage as you can get. Meaning if
Right.
if you, the bank, are going to give it to me, I am going to take it. Well, that's not, I guess, a true statement 100% of the time.
Yeah.
Sometimes there is a such thing as bad debt. And so maybe based off your current situation, the size of the line of credit you should get should be based off the size of cash flow you have.
So this evening, why size matters. Is it the size of the HELOC,
This is what we're doing.
or is it how you use it?
This is what we're doing.
That's what we're talking about.
This is what we're talking about. So this is what we're doing. Okay.
Am I wrong?
I don't know about her, but I will keep it PG.
Okay. Repeat. We're redoing that. Where's the redo?
Record skip.
Yeah. Okay, redo. Size matters. Is it the size of the HELOC, or is it how you use it? This and more starting now. You ready?
Let's do it.
Okay. All right. Let's see. The new games. He has to race the intro over to the vibe board. Ready?
Let's do it.
All right, let's go.
The goal should be, where can I achieve exponential growth? Exponential growth.
Let's just get into it. Let's just get.
Hey, he made it. Okay. I just turned your mic on.
Volume wise.
Yep.
We good, all right. So yeah, I'm getting pretty good at this game. Like I said, I almost had time to run outside and come back. So
Yeah.
all right. So a couple things. This is unlike a traditional live where we, hey, this is the dollar amount, or this is the leverage opportunity, and this is what we're going to use to be able to pay off the debt. And I know we talked about paying off X amount of debt in certain periods of time, but I wanted to kind of hopefully go a little bit slower today to kind of talk through some of the different mental gymnastics it requires to be able to gain a line of credit to be able to execute or eliminate debt. And you know me, I'm all for getting a line of credit, but I am not as concerned about the debt elimination. I understand the weight that it carries, and I do consider myself compassionate around the weight that people feel when they're having discussions with me around debt. But my ultimate focus is to assist in freeing up the cash flow, not just to pay off the debt, but it's an and conversation. Can we pay off debt and also put that money to work so it can work for you? And that's a much broader conversation. So this is absolutely about velocity banking. And velocity banking is, simply a strategy. And there's a lot of people on these, a lot of finfluencers out here who are talking about this strategy specifically. But it's a strategy designed to identify a debt tool so you can drive your income through it to be able to free up cash flow. Usually my question is, well, once that cash flow is freed up, what are you going to do with it? And today's story is, I'll call it very similar, but is so much focused on understanding leverage as a tool, understanding leverage as a vehicle to do other things. And it's not much of a tool unless you are taking action. So it's putting this line of credit into action so that you can do the things that you want. And in most cases, again, just for my people who may not understand what velocity banking is, in most cases, this is what we do. Income comes into our normal checking account, and then from our checking account, we pay our bills and our debts. And then what ends up happening is, after all of these are paid for, that cash flow sits in our checking account waiting for something else to do. And sometimes that something else is taking trips or paying off more debt, or maybe it's even moved to savings. But ideally, it's once that income comes into our checking account and we pay those bills, that's it for that cash. That's a one-time use. And then what's left over hopefully is enough for us to be able to do other things. And in order to do velocity banking, you need to understand a few items. What is that income? Where is it going? What are the total amount of bills and debts? And when I say debts, I don't mean the extra that we traditionally put on credit cards. If the credit card balance is $1,000 and the monthly payment is $10, most of us are paying closer to $50 to $100. We're paying a little bit extra because the goal is to pay it off. When I ask, what are your debts? I'm asking, what are the minimums you're paying on those debts? And then, is there a debt tool? Have we identified a tool that we can drive income through? And we talk a lot about lines of credit, but there are many types of debt tools. There could be credit cards and other things like that, personal lines of credit, business line of credit. But in most cases, we're talking about some form of a HELOC, whether we're talking first or second position. And then obviously, what is your cash flow once we subtract the bills and expenses from the income? And as I mentioned, as we're doing velocity banking, it's that income is coming into your normal checking account, but from your checking account, we're driving it through some type of debt tool, some type of line of credit to be able to then pay bills as usual from that debt tool. And what happens with that leftover cash flow, instead of it sitting here in your checking account, it's actually sitting here on this line of credit. What ends up happening, and again, if we were to just simply step through that, when all of your income is sitting on your debt tool, it is satisfying the payment for that month. And in addition, it's that point in time where the balance on that line of credit is absolutely at its lowest. Sweetheart, would you do me a favor?
Yeah.
Just random. I know I'm thinking about it now, but would you turn that fan on above the camera?
It's on.
Okay, perfect.
Yep.
Just want to make sure it was in my head, so I just want to make sure I said something.
Yeah, good looking out though.
No problem. So Once that cash flow is sitting on that debt tool, what does it do? It drops that balance on that line of credit. And as it drops the balance on that line of credit, that's the moment where we're paying the least amount of interest. And as we are paying bills from the line of credit, the balance is creeping up. But your cash flow is what ends up driving down the balance overall as it relates to that debt tool. So today's example is related to Ava. And this is a pretty interesting client that I've been working with over the last few months, I'd say. She's excited about the fact that, well, she was very excited when we first started because we started our conversation with, hey, I've got a $150,000 line of credit that I was just offered. My objective is to put this $150,000 to work so that I can pay off this debt that I have. I've got student loans. I've got some other things. I want to pay off this debt that I have and start building and generating wealth at some point. And so this is kind of the answer to the test before we actually walk through it. I rejected the fact that even though you have a $150,000 line of credit, I don't think it's something that we should be using. Is there an opportunity to go after something smaller? Why? Why if you came to me with a $150,000 line of credit, would I say something like that?
Right.
What's the value in, because again, I say this all the time. If you're going to give me 100,000, I'm going to take that 100,000. Well, there's a few things that jumped out at me. One, she had never done velocity banking before. So she was just learning the strategy. That's number one. Number two, when I was looking at, and I'm going to walk these things through in detail, but as we were talking through the lines of credit, the cash flow that she has and the bills that she was wanting to pay off, I just didn't see the value in carrying a weight of 150,000. So moral of the story is we rejected that. We were able to actually become a family bank. As we were talking, she identified an opportunity to be able to assist her daughter. So here was an opportunity to actually become a family bank. And ultimately, she was able to crush her debt in about 30 months. And you'll see where I spend less time on how much time it takes to be able to crush this debt, on how long it takes to crush debt using the HELOC calculator, which we'll jump into. It took about 30 months to be able to do so. And a little bit more detail as it relates to Ava's specific situation. She's 57. She's got decent income, and I'll zoom in on this. She's got income of around $46.65. That's her W-2 job. And she also has some rental income of about $1,600. So these two items added together, that's her income. And her cash flow at this point in time is somewhere around $1,085, about $1,000, about $1,000 in cash flow at the moment. Again, if we were to just kind of focus in on her goal, her original goal, it's eliminate debt. I've got this line of credit, specifically $150,000, and I want to eliminate this debt. It's she does want to be able to provide some support to her daughter and maybe leverage some of this $150,000 to be able to do so. She was unsure as to how to go about it, so wanted to kind of dig into some of the details as to what that looks like. Because again, she's stepping through velocity banking and isn't as confident as one might be with a line of credit that size. And then cash flow optimization. Ava sought to optimize her cash flow ultimately so that she could do other things. As your cash flow improves, what are those other factors that are improved along with it? Well, there's some things that when we talked, there were some pieces that I just wanted to take in mind. So as it relates to the HELOC itself, she was originally offered about $150,000 with about 9.4% interest on that $150,000. I thought that was kind of high, but in doing the math, I'd say it's anywhere from between 8 and 13 is kind of what I'm seeing at the moment. So the 9.4% after I kind of reassessed, that's kind of right in the middle of where most are. And again, after consulting with me, the idea was, hey, is there an opportunity to reduce this size so that the impact that you're carrying isn't so great? And again, I'll dig into some of the why, but it kind of jumps out here. The interest only or principal interest payment for $150,000 was going to be somewhere between $1,600 and $2,400 a month. What was her cash flow? Do you remember? Her cash flow was about $1,085. So if the cash flow is $1,085 and this line of credit that we're looking to pick up is somewhere around $1,500 to $2,400 as a principal and interest payment, my alarm was going off. Like, if her cash flow was greater at this stage, then I might be more inclined to move down the path of this 150,000. And for those of you who might be wondering, why couldn't I accept the 150,000, just not use all of it? I would say that is a viable and absolutely a response that I would have in a situation like this. And that is, maybe I'm offered the 150,000, but that doesn't mean I have to use it, because if I'm offered the 150,000, that $1,500 to $2,400 principal or interest only to principal interest payment is only based on me using all 150,000. So I do agree that that is an option. But the other piece that I didn't like, as I mentioned, was the 9.4% interest. So my question was, is there an opportunity to beat that interest rate, grab a smaller line of credit, and still accomplish the goal that you're wanting to accomplish? And
Oh, wow. You can't even see.
yeah, it's a little washed out, but I'll zoom in.
Okay.
So emotional impact of financial decisions. So what I found interesting in this discussion is a lot of the, I'll call it, roller coaster of emotion being experienced is pretty normal. It was one, the initial anxiety around, hey, I've been watching you guys and I have an idea of velocity banking, but this is my first, I'll call it, true implementation of velocity banking. And so the concern was, whoa, this $150,000, yeah, it can solve a lot of my problems, but there's still some anxiety around this dollar amount in general. And how do we build that confidence? Like, what are the actions we can take to be able to slowly step through shifting that anxious feeling to building more confidence around what velocity banking looks like? And in doing so, we can actually achieve and or hit that financial piece. So it's that emotional roller coaster going from I'm anxious to this process. Now I'm stepping into this process. I'm starting to see what financial peace looks like. And then all of a sudden, I've got it. Like now it's on like gangbusters, right? I put myself in a position where I'm generating wealth, paying off debt, increasing my cash flow. So now I'm looking for a way to be able to put those put this dollar amount to work. So it's understanding what that impact is and how can we lessen this by going through this process. So how can we reduce some of that initial anxiety? Number one, by reducing the amount of line of credit that we're actually using. Yeah, I think that's good. And
Now, what's unfortunate is they can't see the pyramid.
pyramid.
Yeah, you draw it in.
is that what you want? This is what we're doing today? I'm drawing today. All right, let's
Get your
draw.
crayons.
Let's do it. All right.
Oh, that's nice. There it is.
So, nice. You see what just happened there? So, the foundation of this process, again, the goal. What's the goal? The conversation started with, hey, I want to or am focused on eliminating debt. And so for most of us, the foundation of velocity banking is rooted in eliminating debt. And we talk a lot about the process being linear, meaning, hey, once I do this, then I do that, and then I move on to the other thing. So it always starts here, eliminating debt. I get it. But as we step through that elimination of debt, if this is the foundation that we're built on, as that first debt starts to become like, as that first debt is gone and that cash flow increases, you go, wait a minute, this process actually works. Like everything that I've been seeing on these videos, I'm actually seeing this real time in my checking account, which means you're starting to build that confidence around this process as your cash flow starts to improve. But as your cash flow starts to improve, what are some of the secondary benefits that occur as it relates to paying off debt? Well, isn't there an opportunity to go back to some of these credit card companies and get your balances reduced? In reducing your balances, not to get your balances reduced, increasing your credit limit. And in increasing your credit limit, what happens? Well, it changes the ratio between the balance and the room available, so it improves your DTI. Well, in the process of improving your DTI, here comes the improvement to your credit score. And bottom line is, as your cash flow starts to take fold and increase, it puts you in a position to where now you can now qualify for more, I'll call it interest-bearing vehicles at lower interest rates. So that 9.4% looks different when you start implementing these strategies and your credit profile starts to improve. And then the last piece is you're putting yourself on a path or putting yourself in a position to focus on what the true goal is. So it kind of starts here. This is just the foundation. And as we build upon these things while adding, while stepping through this process, our ultimate goal is freedom. What does freedom look like once that debt is paid off? Because again, you can be debt-free and broke at the same time. So what are those actions you're taking to achieve true financial freedom, not just paying off debt? So some of the challenges, and I'll just actually keep it large here. Some of the challenges as it relates to Ava. So yeah, okay, got it. So the home that we're referencing is worth about $400,000. The piece that I found interesting here is this home does not have a mortgage on it. So which means she doesn't have a mortgage payment that she's making, but she does have a HELOC. And this HELOC probably has about 29, 28 years left on it, something like that. It's a fairly new home equity loan. The home was paid off and she, I'll call it, fell into a product, not fully understanding the product that she was receiving. And I know my wife has a lot to say about home equity loans.
Sure do.
But the moral of the story is she picked up a home equity loan some years ago, and the balance on that home equity loan is about $136,000. I think it started out as $177,000. And what I believe she used the home equity loan to make improvements on the home, also pay off some other debts. But we're sitting here, meaning this is what's current. There's no mortgage on the property. There's only this home equity loan. The interest rate on that home equity loan is about 3.5%, so a fairly low interest rate. And I believe the payment on this home equity loan is about $1,200 a month. So from my perspective, and this is very easy for me to say, the monthly payment on this home equity loan, I didn't see it as super impactful, but I see why she wants to get rid of it, because what is the flexibility with her having this home equity loan? How about none? She used it, and that's all she was able to do. And now she's got 30 years to pay it off. And sweetheart, if you want to jump in here, what is that impact of having that home equity loan? What does it do over time?
I was trying to find the button.
No problem.
The thing about Ava, and we changed names, by the way, for anybody who's wondering, like, we're just putting somebody's business out here. We do change her name for privacy. The thing about Ava is that she got this before she even understood what it was. In her mind, she was just accessing her equity, and some of the marketing around these, even if you're scrolling on social media, some of the marketing says no payment. Right? Oh, with a HELOC, you have a payment, but with a HELOC or HEA or HEI or HEO, whatever they're calling them.
EIEIO.
Yeah, you don't have a payment. So isn't this already better? This is why I chose half of these people doing these ads probably don't even have one. Who even knows if they own a home? They're just getting paid to do these ads. She didn't know what she was getting herself into. And that was one of her concerns, is once she realized what she had gotten herself into, now she wants to get out as fast as possible, because it's like a parasite that attaches itself to your home equity. So it's not just that they gave you access to your equity. They've also attached a very hungry parasite to your equity. That parasite keeps eating at percentages of your equity as the market changes, right? So what you owe them in order to get out of that is very similar to a title loan, like a car loan, right? Or a payday loan. The longer that you are with that lender, the worse it is for you. It's not just a simple loan or like a simple interest loan, like a credit card. It's also tied to market value. Depending on your area, that could be a very bad thing for you, especially if you're anywhere near California after everything that's happened. People are flocking out of there. And so some of those bordering states have seen some serious increase in their values. What does that mean for people who have had home equity loans? That means that what they would have to do to buy out a company like that is far more than somebody in a different state, right? And this is why it's beneficial for them. So no judgment that she already has one. It's just that now that she does have one, we got to help her get out of it. Right.
And that's the weight. That's part of the weight being carried, right? Like, what are the actions that we need to take to be able to eliminate this home equity loan? So I fully get that that's the goal, but watch the twist or the turn we take.
All right.
Jump back over.
Yep.
So in this case, she was offered make sure I can fit all the stuff in there. There we go. She was offered a $150,000 home equity line of credit. And I want to, yeah, it was 9.4. $150,000 first home equity line of credit at 9.4% was that interest rate. And again, when I look at these two numbers, and again, I'm just comparing, I did not do the math at this stage. I was just simply looking dollar for dollar. $150,000 home equity line of credit, and the original thought was to pay off this $136,000 home equity loan. So these two dollar amounts, so I get it. Once this is gone, this is all I have left. But what is the benefit? What do I gain in doing so? Okay, I pick up $1,200. Sounds like a fair amount. But when I add $1,200 to her current cash flow of $1,000, is $2,200 enough, $2,200 a month enough to be able to address this $150K? Could be, but I needed to dig more into the details. I needed to dig more into the income to understand whether or not this does or doesn't make sense. So I just shared my thoughts as it relates to this $150,000. I understand why it needs to be used, but my concern was the projected payments. That $1,500 to $2,400 a month. I'm sorry. That $1,500 to $2,400 a month payment is what was my concern. And then because there was not a lot of understanding around the HE loan, I had a lot of questions around the product that she currently had. And I wanted to make sure that this new product that we were looking at, that she was looking at getting, that we fully understood what the cost, the cost of entry. The cost of entry and how it can be leveraged, how it can be used, like what are the details around this line of credit? So I just had a lot more questions than I had, hey, yeah, take that 150 and go do this. So it was just a lot more questions that I had about the product. And I think what that did for her was it gave her some, I'll call it opportunity to dig more into the details. And so that's kind of how we left our first meeting. And so go ahead.
What I want you to share though is the fact that she was very scared doing this, like making these calls by herself, like figuring all this out. This was terrifying for her, and she did not have a lot of confidence, not just in herself. She didn't have confidence that she was going to be treated with respect because she wasn't an expert making these calls or asking these questions. I think a lot of people are in that position. And what I'm hoping is that somebody who hasn't taken the steps will be watching and they'll go, golly, if this lady could do it, I can do it then. Right. It wasn't just the one thing that she did or the one appointment that she had with you either. She was able to go off. Okay, now I've got my assignment, my homework, right? Got my homework from Donnell, and I went out and I did that so that I made the other appointment. This makes it so much easier because you're still giving her the autonomy to take those steps by herself. You're not doing it for her to make it easier. She is learning and building confidence through this process. I think that is so important than somebody doing it for you, because then you don't know what your options are, right? You're not getting educated about the process. So if anyone is watching and they're thinking to themselves, like, how do I do all of this? And what are my opportunities? And how would I even know what decision to make? That's the process, learning. So I just wanted to if you could reiterate while you're going through this, just how terrified she was and where the hesitation was at as well. Again, because she'd already gotten in the HE loan and realized what she did afterwards, because she was relying on what the bank was telling her was the value for her, right?
Right.
Yeah, completely left out the part of how they benefit and what would happen after a couple years passed. They just left that part out, and she was just focused on the upfront benefit. And that's okay. We've all done that, and there's no judgment. Again, it's then what? How do we get out of it? What is it that we need to know? And how can we build confidence versus just blind trust, right?
Well, and let's stay right here, because so let's peel that back. What were some of the, because you're right, there was almost like homework assignments given, right? First step, hey, let's go do this. And it was being very clear on what is the question to ask. because I think this is where the challenge comes into play, meaning, okay, you're offering me this first position home equity line of credit, but I know nothing about the product itself. Well, how is the interest calculated? Is it daily? Is it monthly? Like what are the terms? And what are the what's the vehicle used to calculate that interest? Is it done by LIBOR? Is it done by prime? And what does that even mean? And I think what it allowed her to do, I armed her with some questions to ask. And I think what it did was when she went back and asked those questions of the people that were offering these products, they had to step back. And they had to go, you know what? I'm not just selling you something. Now I have to understand what is this product that I'm selling. So it's all you could, again, I wasn't in the room, but I have to believe that it was no different than how it felt for me. And that is you almost get bigger as you're asking these questions and they pause to make sure that they're giving you the proper answer. It's that confidence piece around, you know what? They're not the subject matter expert. I'm just in Walmart buying a product, and now I'm asking the person behind the counter how this product works. That's all. That's all that's happening here. So
Right.
it's being armed with the right questions to ask.
Right.
And as you peel back those layers, you learn maybe this. I get it. You want me to jump into this product because it's a huge win for you. Because again, what do banks gain from home equity lines of credit? Not much. But 150, the size of the line of credit, I would assume matters much more than something, smaller than that. So that's the opportunity.
Yeah. Size matters.
It's salesman selling versus, hey, I'm going to provide you with a vehicle that can actually benefit you. If that makes sense.
Yeah. And then the confidence she gets in that moment when she realizes, like, wow, you can't look at me like I don't know anything, because you also don't know anything about this strategy. So she feels like she's the educator at that moment. That's one part of the equation. The other part was how you calculated why and helped her calculate why she may not want this $150,000 HELOC. And so that's coming up. The other part, though, is how does she connect everything? That was part of that chart that you just showed. Is she didn't feel very tech savvy. And so she did not want to have to be in charge of like this manual, every month having to remember all the steps to connect things and make sure payments went where they were supposed to go. HELOC payment, money to the HELOC, all of that stuff just felt like, aren't we living in 2025? Isn't this the future of auto magic? And we should be able to connect things in a digital way where I'm not having to balance my checkbook and write checks, right? So this was a big concern for her. How do I connect it all and I don't mess this up? You were able to walk her through this testing period, which is really important. So anybody who's wondering about what does that look like to have it come out the HELOC, and if you overdraft to pull from the HELOC, then what's the impact of that? And she went through and you had her do like just on a few dollars just to watch this process, how many days it took in order for one thing to kick the other in, right? So she could understand what that process is and then schedule everything out and understand how it all flows. This was just such a beautiful case study to put together for her and everyone else because of the detail in what she was willing to share too. She was sharing all the steps of the process, right? And this is how anyone watching, this is how you get access to this information, is when we all share. We really mean it when we say we grow farther and faster when we grow together. This is what it means. Get in here and share this information so that not only can others learn from your experience, but that it exists out there somewhere so others have access to this information, right?
That's it. So to your point, let's kind of jump into some of those details. So when we were looking at our numbers, so income, as I mentioned, she has decent income, but let's understand the breakdown of that income. So she's got 4665, and that is her normal W-2 job, but she also has this rental and she's also renting a room. So there's additional income related. This was my issue, or this was my concern. While this is decent income, 62, 65 a month, I think is decent. My concern was, I don't think this is very stable. Meaning, right now, the rental is being rented. Right now, the room is occupied. But the individual in that room that's currently occupying it at $550 a month, what's the likelihood of that person being there in perpetuity? So if I'm picking up this $150,000 line of credit, and that $150,000 line of credit is maxed out, Yeah, I've got great income today that can address that, but what does it look like if for whatever reason this changes? So that was one of my challenges. The other was in kind of identifying or breaking down the expenses and the debts. Again, when you subtract the expenses and debts from this income, cash flow, pretty decent. And we were looking at this $150,000 as what would it look like if that 150K HELOC was the debt tool? So, okay, what I wanted to do was just put this into practice. This is not where we ended up, but I wanted to understand, okay, what would it look like to be able to break this down? So let's kind of put the original offer into practice. And again, I'll zoom in when I need to. So if we put the original offer into practice, what does that look like? So we're talking about a $150,000 line of credit at 9.4% interest. Again, she's got a HE loan of about 136,000 plus this line of credit at about 9.4%. And then we got cash flow of 185. So this is the baseline of where we're starting. Again, this is the baseline of where we started based off what the offer was, based off how much the home is worth and the bills that's kind of hanging out there to date and the cash flow. If we were to just simply take the expenses and the debts, add those two together and subtract that from the cash flow, this is where we're sitting today. So about $1,000 a month in cash flow. Okay, awesome. Well, in understanding some of those debts and breaking those debts down, let's go by. Normally, I don't dig into this part of the sheet, but I wanted to kind of just go into a little bit more detail here, just so that we can understand what we're dealing with. Okay, we've got this HE loan, and that HE loan is sitting at somewhere around $1,270 a month at about 3.5% interest. I didn't think the interest rate was so bad. Again, I get the product is bad, but I was appreciative of the 3.5% interest. Like, where else are you going to get a loan for 3.5%? Okay. So the opportunity is there's this home equity line of credit sitting at about 150,000. We haven't started that yet. Oh, this interest rate is wrong. That's actually 9.4. But at any rate, so we've got this home equity line of credit, and then we've got some other debts. The items in red, so if you would just look at the color, the items in red are what I identified as being the high interest debt. And so if we're going to use this $150,000 line of credit, then the items in red is what I was focused on paying off. And this is me and my math. This is no one else's math but mine. Again, and I know it's kind of difficult to see, but just focus on the color. These were the high interest, and to kind of read into what those high interest debts are, we're talking 30%, 33.5%, 32%, 30%, 27.5%, 22%. So if we add all of these up, plus paying off the HE loan, so again, all of these, plus the HE loan, add those up, that gave me about 150,000. So if I was to pay those off, if I was just to simply pay off those items, I had a few issues with that. One was the size of the debt that we're paying off, this $150,000, being able to pay off that $150,000 timely. That was one of my concerns. The cash flow. While the cash flow is consistent today, is the cash flow consistent tomorrow? So the cash flow isn't great, meaning it's not spectacular. And in addition, how stable is it? And then time, the amount of time it would take for the cash flow to be able to pay off this $150,000 was my other concern. And HELOC, the HELOC payment, $1,200 a month, compared to just the interest only payoff of the line of credit. Because the largest item that I'm eliminating here is the HE loan. So that $1,200 payment is far less than the interest only payment of the HELOC. And again, I don't know that anyone else would have identified that other than me, because I was struggling with the fact that I'm going to replace a debt with a debt. That's really all I'm doing here. I'm replacing a debt with a debt. And I didn't really benefit from the payoff of that debt, because the cost of the debt, interest only, equals the full payment of the item that I'm paying off. And I struggled with that. So, but if we were to do it, if we were to simply address the items in red and subtract those items in red from this line of credit, what's going to happen? Well, the monthly payments of 135, 150, 50, 30, 35, 25, 42, 126, and 127 or 1270 for that home equity line of credit. If we add up all of those debts now paid off, my cash flow does increase. Like there's a win here. So that 6265 minus the new payoff, the new total after all of those items are paid, there should be an increase in this line of credit. I'm sorry, there should be an increase in this cash flow. What is that increase? Okay, so let's kind of dig into it. Well, if we were to address the line of credit as normal, use this 150,000 to pay off the HELOC and those high interest credit cards, as I mentioned, there is an improvement in cash flow. Meaning the new debts and the debts and expenses being paid is about 3317. Subtract that from the cash flow. Okay, I went from 1,085 to about 2,900. That's almost a $2,000 increase in my cash flow. Sounds amazing, right? Okay, so let's put that to work. What would it look like if I was to take this almost $3,000 a month in cash flow and put it to work into this HELOC? How long would it take to pay off this line of credit? Sweetheart, if you jump over to the calculator, I will show.
There you go.
So let me do this real quick. There we go. All right. So as I mentioned, we've got a $150,000 line of credit, and that APR is not right. Let me get rid of this. The APR is about 9.4. So, yeah, there we go. Sorry about that. All right, so got a $150,000 line of credit, APR about 9.4%, and income, somehow these numbers changed on me. Let me fix them real quick. So the income is 6265, and that's correct. So let's calculate that real quick. All right. So in essence, what would happen if we were to pay off this, or again, focus all of our attention, all of our efforts on paying down this line of credit? We got a $150,000 line of credit. We paid off the home equity loan, which is awesome, and paid off a majority of our high interest debt, which is awesome. How long would it take for that $150,000 to be paid off? Well, this is saying right around 60 months. I understand it's small, I'll zoom in, but it's right around 60 months is what this was saying. So it would take approximately 60 months to be able to pay off this line of credit using that cash flow of almost $3,000 a month. Is that okay? So again, it takes 60 months. 60 months is what, 5 years? It's a 10-year draw on the line of credit. So I would say there's nothing wrong in taking this approach. I think my issue with this approach is a little bit unique. My issue isn't whether or not it's possible. I agree it's possible. The question is, should it be done? Meaning, if you look at my cash flow, look at my income coming in. I got 4665 in income coming in plus rental income. That rental income is not stable. It's there today. It may not be there tomorrow. With all of the nervousness around gaining a line of credit and not making the same mistakes that I made with this home equity loan, is there an opportunity to approach this the same way without taking on such a large burden? And that's kind of where we landed. We landed at, rather than taking on a $150,000 line of credit at a 9.4% interest rate, and again, and you have decent cash flow in paying off some of this debt, what would it look like if you did not take on such a burden? Is there an opportunity to do something different? So sweetheart, if you run back over to the other side, we can kind of finish this. So my issue was here. And again, it's really more about the size of the monthly cash flow compared to the size of the line of credit. This was my issue. So my goal was, can I improve this process somewhere? Can I adjust or eliminate or reduce the amount of line of credit and it be a bit more comparable to the amount of cash flow that the client has. And in doing so, we had to navigate some other pieces. And that is maybe the opportunity here as it relates to where you're getting your line of credit from, maybe there's an opportunity to go somewhere else. Meaning this $150,000 line of credit was actually with the same bank that she currently banks with. So what I learned was didn't really step outside of the comfort zone to identify whether or not there was some other opportunities elsewhere. And this is where laying out what those questions look like, how you should ask, who you should ask, and even if you run into the first individual who may not understand fully what it is you're wanting, understanding who to go to next. So maybe bypassing the primary bank and kind of focus the attention on, are there other banks out there that can offer the execution needed, offer the product required in order to be able to accomplish the goal. And Ava's goal to eventually consolidate fewer banks. This was this issue here is, hey, I have a bank that I normally bank with. My income comes into the checking account of that bank. What you're asking me is to go identify another institution where I'll then be moving my money from, transferring from my current checking account into the line of credit at another bank. So now I'm bringing in even more, I'll call it more variability into this process. It was a legitimate concern, but we had to talk through it because again, what's the goal? The goal is to not just pay off debt. The goal is to put yourself in a position where you can generate income. So I would say pay less attention to where the line of credit is coming from and pay more attention to, is this line of credit a vehicle that can fully function as a debt tool? Does it have its own checking account? Does it have its own debit card? Can I write checks from that line of credit? Does it provide me overdraft protection? What are the pieces associated with this line of credit that will allow me to truly accomplish the goal, not just the convenience of, hey, it's linked or it's with the same bank that I currently bank with, if that makes sense. And so we ended up revising the offer, meaning she ended up, and there's a lot going on here and I'll kind of dig into some of that detail, but we ended up revising the offer, meaning instead of a $150,000 line of credit, she ended up getting offered an $80,000 line of credit at 8%. So 150,000 at 9.4 ended up being offered an 80,000 at 80,000 line of credit at 8%. And again, same criteria, same $1,000 in cash flow. And in this case, it looked a little bit different overall, meaning this $80,000 line of credit along with this HE loan, obviously $80,000 will not pay off this HE loan. And I say that's okay. Because if we follow the strategy, we can still address this HE loan over time if we choose to. And I go back to if we choose to. And my concerns here were less of concern and more about wins. And it was, what could be paid off using this line of credit? And again, focus on the color. Being able to address all of this red, meaning all of this high interest debt. Notice this HE loan is still sitting up top. I am not touching this HE loan first time around, but it's what would it look like if we were to just simply address this high interest debt, and what would be achieved in doing so? Well, there's a few things. One, cash flow increased by about 1682, so there's still an increase in cash flow. There's an opportunity to introduce a family bank. That was one of the original goals. Her daughter's going through some challenges, got some high interest debt that she's trying to get rid of as well. Is there an opportunity to assist in being more of a family bank in this process while also paying off debt? And ultimately what ended up happening, again, the answer to the test, she ended up paying off about $56,000 in debt in about 20 months. I think it was, that's actually 30 months. About 30 months total is what this debt ended up being paid off in time for. And what does that cash flow increase look like? So the 6265, when we pay off the high interest debt, add that to the normal expenses, there is an increase in income. That increase in income, because if you can see it, I'm showing this as a negative number, meaning there is an increase in income here because she became a family bank. she was able to lend a certain dollar amount to her daughter, and there's a cost associated with lending that dollar amount out. And we'll dig into more of those details. But the moral of the story is she ended up with a pretty decent cash flow, and I'd say comparable to what she had before, about 2767. I think before it was like 2,900. So it's about a $200 difference in cash flow, but a less, the size of the dollar amount that she ended up having was a lot less. And again, digging into some of those details, the idea was to pay off this high interest debt. And we're talking again, 14%, 22%, 27.5%, all the way up to about 33.5% is the interest debt that was being paid off using this process. And putting herself in a position to where she could take about 30,000 out of this line of credit and offer it to her daughter as a debt payoff as well. And this was an interesting discussion also, because there was a fair amount of dialogue around, one, how much should I provide and what should I charge? And this came straight out of a simple interest calculator at calculator.net. This wasn't, my thought process was not to make this too complicated. A little bit of backstory on this subject, meaning becoming a family bank for her daughter. Her daughter was already prepared to take a $30,000 loan from her company's 401k. So this was already an action that was going to be taken. Well, that $30,000 loan that she was going to take from her 401k was going to end up somewhere around $800 a month. So here's an opportunity to save her daughter some money and also put herself in a position to where she has more, I'll call it defined income, stable income to assist in the payoff of this line of credit. So in doing so, this $30,000 loan at charging herself 12%, and again, if you were to put it in a simple interest calculator, $30,000 at 12%, it works out to about $675 a month. And if you multiply $675 a month over the next 60 months, it's a 5-year payback period. Over 60 months, it ends up being somewhere around 39 grand, if I'm not mistaken. So there's about 9,000 in interest that's being paid through this process. So again, here's an opportunity to, in total, instead of 150,000, pay off about $56,000 in debt. So if you subtract the 30,000 that she's providing to her daughter, it's about 26,151 is what this total amount of debt being paid off equates to, about 26,000. So again, cash flow about 2767, paying off about $56,000 of debt. So what does that look like from a velocity banking perspective? And this goes back to your earlier point, sweetheart. When you're dealing with someone who has never done velocity banking before, this is the scary part. Like, okay, it was hard enough getting the home equity line of credit. Now I have to put it into action. Now I have to actually take action with this line of credit and do what? Well, the process looks like driving my income through my checking account. Income comes into my checking account, and then driving that income through the line of credit. And again, the income isn't just her W-2 job. The income is also the rental of 1050, the monthly income from the rental, the room that's being rented, and her daughter's loan. So when you add all of these amounts up, it's about 2275. So it's these $2 amounts that are actually being driven through this line of credit. I want to pause here for a minute, because you might question whether or not this loan is actually income. Is it a reduction in a debt, or is it income? And this is one that I had to pause on myself, because there has to be some clarity around here. And here's where I landed. I am confident she is paying taxes on the rent and the rental income and the room rent. If she's not, that's not for me to say. But if she's paying rent here, if she's paying taxes on these $2 amounts, the same way she would pay taxes on her income, are there taxes being paid, or should there be taxes paid on the loan to her daughter? And the truth is, or the short answer to that question is yes. Meaning, if this is structured right, if there is a promissory note involved, there would be taxes on anything above the base amount that was loaned. So Anything above that 30,000, there is a tax implication. So this is something that she would have to take up with her tax attorney, but I wanted to make sure I accounted for it in the right spot. So this is additional income being added to this process. And before we even got started, what I suggested was first just test it. Take one bill and allow that bill to be paid from this line of credit. And when the bill is paid from this line of credit, take note of the amount of time it takes to do so and what ends up happening over time. And so what she ended up doing was she ended up having to get a line of credit with a different bank and allowing that bank to serve as overdraft protection. So in taking one bill, like the HELOC, in taking one bill and allowing that one bill to be paid from the checking account that is linked to this line of credit, and allowing that checking account to have a zero balance. So what happens when the direct debit happens on this 1270? Well, it's going to turn this checking account balance to a negative balance. Well, because the home equity line of credit is linked to this checking account, it ends up then, I'll call it, creating an overdraft protection situation where once this checking account balance goes negative, the positive dollar amount from this home equity line of credit ends up canceling out that negative amount. Yep. So I guess the moral of the story here is, rather than jumping right into velocity banking and using this line of credit to then pay all of these bills, rather than going this route, it was, let's just try one and see how that functions. Let's just try one to see what happens over time as you're doing this process. And what ended up happening was she saw success. So the first thing she did was this. The first thing she did was she grouped these dollar amounts together and took a chunk from her line of credit and paid off all of these bills. And in doing so, it reduced the amount that was left. She has a Kia payment left, and I believe the home equity line of credit, but ultimately it's about $319 a month that's left over, plus her normal expenses. And again, that's normal car insurance, gas, electric, all of those kind of things, about $25.84. She's got the HELOC payment that is not touched at this moment. And again, the combination of income. So when you add all of those things together and subtract the expenses and the debt, she's got about $27.87 left over. What do we do with that $27.87? We do velocity banking. We take that $27.87, we allow it to sit on the balance of that line of credit, which drops that line of credit, and we do this month after month after month. And again, it's allowing the cash flow to simply sit on the line of credit. The point that we're currently in today is she is in the process of shifting her income from going to her normal bank and then having to transfer dollars from her normal bank into the line of credit to removing this from the process and allowing her income to go directly into the checking account associated with the line of credit, which ultimately just means her full check is now going to be sitting on her line of credit. That's the point that we're in today. But I wanted to highlight a little bit, like in the midst of this process, what were some of the other items that was identified? What were some of the other lessons learned? And it started out with starting small. It was doing $5, $10 increments to start to see where you end up. My laser, there it is. Doing $5 to $10 increments to just see how long it takes for the balance to correct itself. What does that overdraft protection process look like? Are you charged a $12 fee or some type of overdraft charge because you're doing that? Just checking the box to make sure before you jump 100% into velocity banking, what's the true impact on the line of credit? And also understanding how to truly consolidate your bills, meaning what does that process look like? It sounds great, but if we're going to group all of those debts that we have, those high interest credit card payments, and we're pulling them all together, what does it look like to be able to actually eliminate them? And verify whether or not that overdraft protection actually works. So what are the steps that need to be taken in order to do so? And here's what I think she's noticed right off the bat is there was absolutely an impact to her credit score. Well, where does that impact come from and why? Well, as the debt starts to be paid off and those high interest credit cards start to jump to zero, start to go to zero, her DTI improves. Even though all she's doing is transferring the debt, right? She transferred high interest debt over to a low interest home equity line of credit. In truth, was anything truly paid off? All we did was move debt from one place to another. Well, what ended up happening in doing so, her DTI improved on the lines of credit that she had ultimately maxed out. And because there's still room on that home equity line of credit, it's an $80,000 home equity line of credit with a balance of $56,000. So there's room left. So that's not maxed out. And so in doing so, she saw an absolute increase in her credit score and her, I'll call it credit worthiness. And so the objective from this point, meaning even though we're just getting started, even though she has paid off a fair amount of high interest debt, the thought process is don't close any of these. Now here's the opportunity to go back to these credit card companies and get your credit limits increased. Now that the balances are gone, now that you've proven that you can handle this amount of line of credit, now here's an opportunity to increase those credit limits, to put yourself in an even better credit-worthy position. So that's kind of the next stage from this process. But what does this look like over time? Meaning, if the credit limit started out as $80,000 at 8%, oh, you can't see it, $80,000 at 8%, what does this look like after paying off the debt, after consolidating the debt? The balance is now $56,413. But I've got this cash flow of $2767 that every month is going to sit on the balance of this line of credit and pay it down. Well, after 3 months, again, $2767 plus the balance or the room that was already sitting there on this line of credit, after 3 months, there's about $31,000 in space sitting on this line of credit that if anything were to happen, if any emergency came about, she has the opportunity to be able to use this dollar amount to be able to assist. And every month, as this cash flow continues to sit on this product after 12 months, she would have created room or space on this line of credit of about $56,000. It's 12 months. What could she do with this $56,000? And this is where this comes into play. What we don't want to lose sight of is the goal. First goal was debt consolidation. The second objective and or goal was to be able to assist her daughter. Well, we've been able to do that. And we still have space on this line of credit. The other goal was, I do want to start putting my money to work for me. Well, if the goal was to become a family bank, right? That was part of this process as well, being a family bank. And we've already started that process by lending $30,000 to my daughter, and she's on a payment plan to be able to pay this back instead of her using her company's 401k. If the goal is to be a family bank, why not just continue that thought process all the way through? Meaning, is there an opportunity to implement a family bank using some of the space between this balance and using this cash flow to then pay down that balance? So really simple, taking advantage of the space between here and here and put that money to work. And instead of waiting till the debt has been consolidated, instead of waiting till the debt has been paid off, because if I run this through the HELOC calculator, this 56,413 into the HELOC calculator would take about, we ended up being 30 months. Here, let's take a look. Sweetheart, if you jump over to the calculator. So what is it? It's 56,413. And the interest rate on this dollar amount is about 8%. And same income. The debts being paid off, that dollar amount ended up being, let me make sure I get it right, 4173. So what does this look like And how long would it take for that dollar amount to be paid off? And I understand it's probably fairly small, but it takes approximately 28 months. Let's just call it 30 months. In about 30 months, this dollar amount would be paid off. Okay. So if the goal is to pay off debt, the entire space on this line of credit would be freed up in almost, about 2.5 years, let's call it. Well, remember, Ava's how old? 57. So if she focused her attention on this line of credit, 2.5 years from now, she'd be almost 60. And so is 60 the right time to now focus on putting this extra dollar amount to work? I don't think so. Is there an opportunity to take advantage of the space in this line of credit and put it to work today? And that's kind of the next step of this process. You jump back over, sweetheart. So what would it look like if we took a revised approach? And all I'm saying there is, and again, I'll drill in, a revised approach of doing the normal process, continuing to pay bills from the line of credit as discussed. It's the same income, that doesn't change. Same bills, that doesn't change. However, I want to take advantage of this space. I've got a $56,000 balance on an $80,000 line of credit. The whole point is just to take advantage of this space and put that money to work. So what does that look like? Well, in month one, that $56,000, I've got the same cash flow that's going to drop the balance in month one, but I want to take $20,000 and truly start a family bank. Ava's daughter is 35 years of age. She's 57, her daughter's 35. Here's an opportunity to take $20,000 out of this SKIA and truly start a family bank. So what would it look like if we were to take that $20,000 and dump it into a vehicle that can build and generate tax-free income? And I want to kind of go back and just make sure we acknowledge something here. I am doing nothing with this HELOC during this process. I am simply making my 1270 payments. And I know this probably freaks my wife out, but I am simply making this 1270 payment. And here's why. That 1270 is sitting at, I think it was 3.5%. As long as I maintain my income, as long as my daughter's paying back her loan, and while I have my renters, I have decent enough cash flow to where this 1270 isn't fully impacting me. I'm not saying it's not a problem. I'm not saying it's not a debt. I'm not saying it should be paid off. All I'm stating is there an opportunity to treat this as an and asset and focus our attention on what the true goal was? The true goal, again, there were several. It was pay off debt. Okay, we did that because my cash flow increased. It was be able to help my daughter. Okay, we did that. And she's paying us back $675 a month. But in addition, it was, I'm 57 years of age. I won't be able to work my W-2 job forever. Is there an opportunity to get this money to work for me? And we've already determined it would take about 30 months, about 2.5 years to be able to pay off all of this debt if we chose to, and then we could chunk away at the HELOC at that point. But does that assist me in being able to, again, have freedom, generate wealth, have additional income? It does not.
Well, it's financial stability. That's what it is.
Right.
Whoops, pushed the wrong button. Where are we at? Here we go. That's us. It's financial stability.
That's right.
It's not just generational wealth, because if you can't be stable financially for yourself and provide for yourself, how are we going to pass anything on? So that's really what it comes down to, is that the only hope her daughter has is that she ends up with this asset, this house, right? These properties that her mom owns. And I'm sure her mom's wanting to also protect those assets. The problem is, now that she understands what it is that she has in this HELOC, she wants to get out of it because she knows what's coming down the road is only going to be worse. Which is worse? Having to get out of this HELOC, having to do this this parasite cleanse, this detox, this financial detox, to get all of these parasites that are attached to the equity and the things that you have earned, just simply because they gave you the option to opt into their product, right? Which is worse? having to focus all of your working years on detaching those types of products from your opportunities, or having to think about what would happen if you no longer had working income.
Right.
Where would the income come from? So that's really where they shine. Like, this is like their bread and butter, reverse mortgages, all of that, right? When you no longer can trade your time for money, you can rely on your equity. That's what these systems are in place for. But imagine what happens when you have to rely on that for income. You're looking at the benefit right now, but the whole reason of working to pay off your home and to be able to leverage that equity wasn't to survive. So you do all of this. You went through all the deals. You learned real estate so that you could have rental properties. You worked extra hard. You were trying to do the right thing, make the right decisions. And then at the end, you went, whoops, I'm not going to be able to keep these. How is that possible? So which is worse, realizing that you won't have any income or realizing that you won't have any assets?
And so is there an opportunity to make this an and conversation?
Yeah.
Put the line of credit to work so they can do more for you than just make you debt free.
Well, I think you were already doing that. So one thing that I wanted to mention earlier was the loan to her daughter.
Yes.
A lot of people would not do this.
Right.
A lot of people would not access their leverage for somebody else without there being like a guarantee that they would be paid back. However, we have to start thinking about things in a different way. We have to start thinking multi-generational.
How does it go? We go further and farther?
We go farther and faster when we go together.
There you go.
And pooling in your resources with your family. Now, I'm going to say family loosely.
I know you are.
I'm going to say just because somebody is related to you does not give them access to you financially. Not all families are set up this way, and that's okay. That's okay if they're not. However, go ahead.
Well, I was going to say, and let's be clear, there's a promissory note involved here.
Okay.
So there is a contract here around what the expectation is around this product. And here's what made it so simple for me. She was already prepared to do this. She was already committed to taking this loan out of her 401k for $800 a month. And how does that 401k loan work? You have no control. And that 401k loan, that $800 a month is coming out of your check before you get it. So what we built into this promissory note is these should be direct debited amounts, meaning it shouldn't be, hey, did she pay me this month or not? It should be, these payments are automatic. They automatically show into the account, no different than your income. But that's the commitment. Like if we're going to lock arms and do this together, then there has to be accountability and commitment on both sides.
Yeah.
No, you're absolutely correct.
Yeah, it really does, because this is not we've seen this happen firsthand, where somebody gets the idea for velocity banking, they understand the concept, they see the vision of a family bank, and then it becomes a manipulation tool.
Right.
So this is not for every single family. Not every family is set up for this level of trust. However, if you are, and if this is something that you guys can band together, this can be powerful. Nothing's going to get cheaper. And there's nothing that's going to be introduced that is suddenly going to make financial stability just happen to be easier.
No magic wand here.
That's right. And no one's coming to save us. So we have to learn these types of strategies in order to be able to create the systems that will create the stability. It's just information. That's it. It's just knowledge, and helps us to make these decisions, helps us to drive these conversations with other people. For instance, if this money were to have sat in her home, she's not actually gaining anything, because she can't use the additional equity to reduce the interest that she'd be paying or the terms on her HELOC, right? So if this money were just sitting there, it would not be helping her either. If this money were to be sitting in a savings account, for instance, high yield savings account, it still would not help her as much as her daughter, loaning it to her daughter, that bank would be lending it to other people and they would be making the spread, whatever she thinks she would be benefiting off of any type of account. I don't care what kind of terms. She's benefiting more from loaning it to her daughter. Her daughter is benefiting more from borrowing from her mother. And in turn, they're helping each other, making the boat go faster. We have not talked about the boat in a really long time.
We'll get there.
Yeah, we'll revisit the boat in a little bit. But for those who know the term, will it make the boat go faster? This is how you make the boat go faster. And so I really do appreciate, not only that was she very timid in stepping forward in this process, she was willing to do it. And why was she willing to do it? Why was she willing to take those steps forward, even when she was afraid? Even when she was not confident, she was willing to learn. She was willing to keep coming back to class and learning more so that she could, yep, I can check this box. I feel confident. Okay, I understand this piece, or I don't understand this piece. I need to understand this piece. And she kept moving forward. That's the part. Now, there are a lot of people who are watching this, and maybe your spouse or your partner, they are not watching this. And so therefore, you're trying to gain confidence, but they are tearing your confidence down. Tearing that confidence down, and you're going, well, hold on, I'm trying to wrap my head around this, but I need you on board. Like, I can't get in the boat if you ain't in the boat. We ain't going anywhere. I'm gonna just be sitting here in this boat, in this water, because you have to come. It's non-negotiable, right? We got to go together. And we have to start changing those conversations. I actually think that would be a good stream for us to just talk about that. We haven't done that in a while. Yeah, there was a few questions in there like, hey, how do I get my wife on board? How do I get my spouse on board? And how do I get my daughter on board or my mom on board, right?
And it's I'm going to say it's not a one size fits all approach. When you bring this up, I keep thinking about the guy who's got the friend whose wife has the friends and they sit around and drink wine together, and he wants me to um, kind of jump into the
Yeah, I
lion's
want to go
den.
sit with them.
Exactly.
I want to be
Because
in the cackling group,
it's
the
that
hecklers.
the
Yeah.
approach with them would be different from the one who maybe understands the power of eliminating debt, just needs to understand how this tool works, like how getting more debt allows you to be able to pay off. It's just the concept of using debt to pay off debt. Like, that's a difficult one to wrap your head around.
Right.
So my point is, it's not a one size fits all conversation. And I think how you approach that is very, very important. And I think usually those conversations start here with me. And that is, what are you doing today? What are you doing today, and how is what you're doing working? Because if it's working, if you're doing Debt Snowball today and Debt Snowball is working, I don't know that you need a process like this. But if what you're doing isn't currently working, and when I say working, I mean not just working to pay off debt, but working to hit your goal. So what are you doing today to be able to achieve your goal? Is your goal simply to be debt free? Well, let me show you how being debt free and broke at the same time is actually a thing. If the goal is to eventually pay off your debt so that you can then finally hit that financial freedom goal, well, let me show you how time is an important factor here. How many compound cycles do you have, and how many compound cycles will be lost during that time of paying off debt to then start the clock around generating wealth? So it's kind of understanding, it's tiptoeing through this process, but starting with, what are we doing today, and is what we're doing working?
Yeah. There's a comment here from Roger. Welcome, Roger. I love seeing these perspectives because this was us. This was us a while ago. Roger says, I don't like debt. As a matter of fact, I hate it. It keeps you from financial freedom and legacy to my future children and grandchildren. That is my goal. If legacy for your future children, grandchildren is your goal, then you need to change your relationship with debt. It is not going to be built by saving legacy and wealth. And this, I'm so glad you're here for this particular live stream, because the next part that we're going into is exactly how to leverage your cash flow, how to use your leverage. Because we were talking about in the beginning of the stream, is it the size of the HELOC or is it how you use it? Is it the size of the leverage, the amount of leverage that you have available to you, or how you use it? Let's just change the word out. Let's just say it's debt, right?
Yeah, it is.
Is it the amount of debt that you have, or is it how you're using it?
I was listening to a pretty awesome stream related to velocity banking and whether just taking that cash flow you have and putting it in a high yield savings account compared. And I think the piece that kept getting lost in that discussion is autonomy and flexibility. Like this cash flow that we're referencing right now, we're using that cash flow to pay down this line of credit that we use to pay off debt. Could we have done something else with this cash flow to build just as much wealth on the outside to then still ultimately pay the debt? Yeah, yes. But how much autonomy and how much flexibility would you have to be able to do so? Meaning the weight of this debt is just getting larger. So you're now supposed to be okay with the size of the debt getting larger while you've got this high yield savings account over here across the street that's generating and building a positive wealth for you. Like I don't think that maths.
But it's the safeness.
Right.
That's the part.
I agree.
And I am with everyone who would choose safeness over risk. Man, I am with you on that. That is a default mode right there for all of us. However, but until I saw what I saw and I can't unsee it now. And that is how to use leverage, because the results not only are more stable. This is where the phrase "you can't have your cake and eat it too" comes from. Because if you have cake and then you eat it, you no longer have the cake. It's gone because you ate it. If you have a cake that keeps regenerating, right? If you have a cake machine that every time you take a bite, you know how much of a bite to take so that it'll regenerate. And therefore you can always have your cake and eat it too, because you're not going to end up without any cake. That's where that phrase comes from. And I think we have it stuck in our mind that we can either have money and not ever use it because it has to stay in these accounts, these traditional systems, right?
Right.
That's how you keep your cake, is you just don't eat it. What's the point of having cake? What's the point of having money? What's the point of having savings if you can't turn it into income?
Right.
What's the point of working for income if you cannot end up with the ability to no longer work and still have income? Because we have to do the math on what's going to happen. At some point, we are not going to be able to work like we are now.
And I think it's also keeping into consideration, we talk a lot about velocity banking, but we don't spend a whole lot of time talking about velocity because it's about the velocity of money. It's about the speed at which the payoff happens.
Nathan says, I said, what happens? He said, you're going to end up with diabetes. Diabetes. Oh, we appreciate you guys so much. Diabetes and clogged arteries.
So
Hey, but you
we are
have the
just
cake.
about home on this as well.
Okay. All right. All right.
Jump back in and
bad.
and then we can kind of jump into all of the questions in the comments because we're just about home here. And that is this. So again, the thought process is if we're going to treat this as a family bank, then let's implement the family bank. And it's taking advantage of the gap between these two numbers. Leverage some of that room to be able to start this family bank. And if I do that, again, if I add 20,000 to this balance, or if I add 20,000 to this balance, this is that ending balance at the end of month one. So what does this look like over time? What does it look like if we just simply implement velocity banking using the same cash flow on this new balance? What does that look like at the end of 12 months? Well, at the end of 12 months, we would have I'll call it increased the room or the space in the line of credit of about $36,000. Meaning, if something happens within that time frame that I needed to address, I have the liquidity of about 36K to be able to do so. And in addition, the balance on my line of credit at the end of that first year is about 43 grand. So what's going to happen here at the end of year one? Well, at the end of year one, I guess I'll use this color. At the end of year one, I'm then going to take another, oh, it doesn't have to be so large, does it? One moment. At the end of year one, I'm going to take another 20K. And I guess I'm going to add another 20K of debt, meaning the balance on the line of credit is going to increase by another 20,000 at the start of year 2, which would be month 13, and I'm going to do this process all over again. Well, notice if I'm creating approximately $36,000 of space on this line of credit every year, but I'm adding about $20,000 of debt, notice the balance is still dropping about 16 grand every year. So I'm still making progress on this line of credit. So if I'm still making progress on this line of credit, how long would it take for me to pay it off? Well, it will still end up being somewhere around that 10-year time frame, which is the draw period for this line of credit. So I'm still able to accomplish the goal, but also put this dollar amount to work. And what happens when I put this dollar amount to work? What ends up, one moment, what is left, or what is the growth inside of a secure compound interest account if I was to put this $20,000 to work? Again, who are we doing it on? It's daughter, 35 years of age. And I just ran it out 15 years. What does it look like from age 35 to age 50 of putting away $20,000 a year, which is about $1667 a month? If we were to do that, we'd be buying a life insurance policy of around $720,000 on the daughter. And over that period of time, over that 15-year period, about $300,000 would have been implemented into this product, about 1.1 in leverage. So these two dollar amounts are what's working together. And these two dollar amounts working together produces cash value of about $537,000. Remember that home equity loan that had a 30-year, I think it's about 27, 29, 28 years, about 28-year balance on it? Well, this is now 15 years later. I've been paying that $1,207 every month for the last 15 years. So the balance would be less, but it wouldn't be gone. But because I took a different approach, because I focused my cash flow on actually working for me, couldn't I easily pay off that $1,207 a month that I've been paying on? And I get it. I got about another 10 years, 12 years left to pay on it. Couldn't I pay it off if I wanted to? Of course I could.
Yep.
And in addition, what's available to me as income to go along with everything else that I'm doing? So this is in addition to. So my point, the piece in sharing this is there's an opportunity to have more and discussions around how we use debt to not just eliminate the high interest debt that we have, but also put money to work so it can put ourselves in a position to where we have even more liquidity to be able to take action. And in this case, taking that $20,000 a year for the next 15 years gives a vehicle about $500,000. And God forbid something happens, we're talking about a $3.4 million death benefit payout. And you eventually pass this on from mother to daughter. At some point, her daughter will be able to pick this up as well and continue this process if she chose to, or take this $537 or $53,000 rather, this $53,000 tax free for the rest of her life. So
Yeah. So because her mom would be leveraging her daughter in this way, I think this is probably one of the smartest things to do, because now you're compounding at a rate that cannot be matched by the time her daughter is her age, right?
right.
And if her daughter is able to continue feeding this policy, or if her daughter has a policy started on her kids, right? She's able to then do the same thing. Not only could she be able to leverage this policy in addition to her mom being able to leverage this policy in this way, but they would also be able to tap into the equity that they just paid off to, again, create more assets.
Rinse and repeat.
Right, exactly. Yeah, so smart. And to think of, are you done?
Yeah, this is the only thing I have left.
Okay, go ahead.
No, that's it. This is the only thing. Moral of the story is, where's your leverage located? Do you understand how to use it? And again, we talk about a few number of items. This is not an exhaustive list. Today is about velocity banking and leveraging a home equity line of credit to do so, and putting that home equity line of credit to work so that you can create a leveraged IUL. Again, her daughter was going to leverage her company's 401k, but is there an opportunity? Would there have been an opportunity to move some of those dollars she has into her own self-directed 401k and do the same? Meaning, where is your leverage located? Do you understand where your leverage is located, and how can you put that leverage to work? Done.
And there are many ways to 10.
Man.
The idea of rinse and repeat. I can't remember what I was just about to say, but the idea, it's okay. The idea of rinse and repeat for them. Oh, here it is. Do you feel confident about what it is that Ava and her daughter did through this case study today? By the time you're watching this, oh, whoops, got a message. I don't know if you can see that.
I can.
By the time you're watching this, you would have watched her go from being terrified to get started, very unconfident about taking even one inconfident. It's a new word. It's new. It's just a new word. Not confident about taking the steps. If you were to watch what now you can see what is possible for them. This is the beautiful part. I don't even know how to put it into words, really. It's an honor to watch people go from, I don't know how, what do I do? I'm scared, to I want to do this. I'm going to learn how to do this. I'm going to make this happen. And now they can sleep at night knowing that they have a plan, not just a plan for them. She's teaching her daughter to do the same thing. Okay. It's each one teach one. Her daughter's doing this with her now. So even if it was just initially for the $30,000 loan so that she could get that healthcare situation handled, either way, it had to be handled, right?
It was going to happen regardless.
Right. But now she's sitting there recovering, not thinking about the debt that she has to pay back. She's thinking about the bank that she's building by having to have leveraged that and had the procedure done in addition to that. This is win-win. I mean, sucks that she has to have that situation, but and I'm sure once they start doing the math, they're going, gosh, I wish we would have known this and we could have been doing this all along. And that's the lesson, is the majority of people, by the time they start this and they start to see these results and they start to see the proof that it works, they're thinking to themselves, why didn't I start this sooner? Where could I have been now if I would have started this sooner? And if that's you, I hope that this was enough to give you the confidence to take your first step. Some story that we shared was who gave her the confidence to move forward. Right. And so I hope that she's a story for you. Yeah, there it is.
And I think you said it like one of the pieces that I call it excites me around this, not just individuals like this, but people who I run into who are, the first initial conversation is they view banks and financial institutions and debt and all of these things as not just foreign, but you're right, frightening. And it goes from walking into a banking institution thinking they are the subject matter experts, but then you can just feel the table turn. And you become the subject matter expert. You become the one who is actually dictating to the bank what the expectations are and what it is you need and what actions need to be taken. And then as you start to see the process work, it's game on. Now you're trying to figure out where else can I find the additional leverage in my life to be able to put it to work.
Yeah, I was going to use a sports analogy, but then I started laughing at myself. And so I'll just...
Hey, Coach K.
I will just opt out of that. It was almost essentially like you're not feeling like you know all the rules to the game. You get out on the court and then you learn that the ref doesn't know the calls to make and you're having to educate the ref. That's essentially how it feels. And then all of a sudden you're not as afraid to make mistakes anymore because you realize that everybody's learning. And not everybody's perfect. And there's no true expert out there because there's just way too many variables and how this applies to people. There are many ways to 10.
Many ways.
If you've not seen an example that is exactly like yours, come be the example for somebody else so that they can see. And every time we share, we open up one angle that somebody had that was a different piece in their puzzle and they had to figure it out. there may not have been anybody like them. So we appreciate everybody who calls you for the consultations. Those are free, by the way, and shares their information. Sometimes it's just vulnerable to like call somebody that they saw on YouTube. I mean, who's doing that, right? Just, hey, let me share with you some information that might make me feel vulnerable. Like, look at all this debt I'm in. I don't want to tell people that. Look at this cash flow I have. If I'm not feeling good about the number, I'm seeing these people with $1,000. Maybe I don't have that, right? I don't want to call and tell somebody on a Zoom call like that. What did you're the worst at too, because you wouldn't want to do it either, but you did.
Well, and because there's this line that I walk, right? Like what I'm walking, like everything that I just laid out to you is my thought in how this should go. That doesn't mean this is how it goes. Because what I can't do is I can't advise you as to what you should do. I can't tell you to go get this line of credit. I can't.
Right.
But we can talk through what's required. Like, what do you need? What is the objective? And what are some of the actions you can take to be able to hit that objective? What are some of the actions you can, what are some of the questions you can ask of the people who gatekeep a lot of these products that we're trying to achieve so that you can have access to it? So it's understanding what are just the conversations to have to be able to step through this process and gain confidence around being able to do so.
Somebody in the chat, let me think of who it was asking, could we do a list of questions to ask lenders? Could we do a list of questions to ask some of the banks or people that we would need to interview about these processes? Could we maybe just go over one of those?
Could do it.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
like a list of that.
Absolutely.
Okay, cool. I think we're running out of space on the thing because I forgot to check it last time.
No worries, and I'm all done. And it was kind of a lengthy live as well because I wanted to step through a lot of this information. So as far as I'm concerned, we can also end this thing here if there's no questions.
Oh,
Stay right here.
okay. Yeah, I actually don't see. Let me double check. Hey, Shannon. Oh, we got some people jumping in the chat at the end here. It's great. Oh, hello, Mr. Taylor.
What's up, buddy?
All right. Yeah, we miss seeing everybody in the chat. So we love it when you guys get on here and tell us if you're on. Okay, yeah. T Strong says yes, it was me. And we're gonna do that. So next week, let's just go over some of the questions to ask and some of the processes. That'll be just for that.
It'll be easy.
Tuesday, 5:30 Pacific Standard Time. Be here. That's when class is starting. And that's when we can all raise our hand and ask the questions, whether if it's about your situation, whether if it's about the situation or the process. Let's definitely do that.
One other thing.
Okay.
Before we go.
All right.
When we come back next Tuesday, one of us will actually be a year older.
Oh, yeah.
It's not me.
It's about to be my birthday.
Sweetheart, happy birthday.
Thank you.
We will be here live next Tuesday again with at all the standard time, somewhere around 5:30 PST.
That's right. And I'll be a whole year older. Yay me. Yay me. Okay. We all right, here we go. So time is the most valuable resource that we have. If you haven't learned anything from tonight, it is don't wait and don't waste your time. And we are so grateful that you're spending your time here with us. We don't take it for granted, and we appreciate every single one of you for commenting, for giving us a like, for leaving a comment or jumping in the chat, or for our replay viewers, just leaving a comment. All of that helps us grow farther. And again, we grow farther and faster when we grow together. All right. So I think that's it. We like to end with, if you didn't come from a wealthy family,
you can make sure a wealthy family comes from you.
So stay tuned.
Stay protected.
Stay focused.
Stay connected.
I'm Angelique.
And I'm Donnell.
And our goal is to help you,
as always, get self-directed.
And to do that, we have a ton of free resources and a lot more coming. We really appreciate your time. So get back here next Tuesday, 5:30 Pacific Standard Time. We'll see you there. Thanks for tuning in, guys.
Hey, before you go, we want to remind you that becoming fully self-directed means gaining complete control over your wealth, time, and freedom. It's not just an idea. It's a framework, a mindset, and the power to make informed decisions to secure your future. Being here means you're taking those steps, and we want to thank you for allowing us to guide you. We believe that we grow farther and faster when we grow together. So tune in next time and tell a friend to tell a friend. We've helped thousands of people just like you start their journey to financial freedom. And if they can do it, you can too. And if you're ready to learn more, we got you. Get a head start by grabbing these 2 free books. But how do they get them, Donnell?
Head over to my website where you'll have access to a few things. A ton of free resources, case studies, and over 100 5-star reviews from people just like you. And in 15 minutes, we can explore what's possible for you. So don't wait.
Invest in what you want, when you want.
But first, let us help you get
Get self-directed.